One season after returning to the top tier of Portuguese football, we managed to keep União de Tomar within the Liga Portugal with a surprising 10th place finish. Our stature grew a little bit due to that, but my focus was in building on the campaign that we put together last year and to continue our reputation as overachievers.
Then you better get started.
That meant letting a lot of players that came up with us through the ranks be released in a free agency and bringing in capable players that can handle this level while spending within our means. So that meant more free transfers such as the likes of winger Michiru Kohout, midfielder Taylor Charters, and striker Josu Merino. We have also been keeping track of our Star Academy graduate Marco Tavares, who had a successful loan stint last season with Pero Pinheiro and would play out on loan for one more season with Caldas before we integrate him into the senior team. But otherwise, there's not too much movement as we head into the new season, trusting our core players from last year like Aristide Wam, Thiago Ferreira, Irfan Kandi, Adam Cade, Rodrigo Matos, Rafa Pinto, and our star striker, Archie Goodwin. We got our first phase draw of the Allianz Cup against Famalicão, and we started the season with a big 2-1 win over them before getting Arouca in the second phase. It was a much tougher outing as it was a 1-1 draw that led all the way to penalty kicks. Thankfully, we survived those with a 4-3 win in them to move on to the third phase of the Allianz Cup, as we sold off some of our last Season 1 stalwarts in Arthur Souza and Anderson Filho before getting the third phase draw with Braga and Farense in our group. This led to the start of the Liga Portugal season, where Rafa Pinto's late goal against Moreirense helped us rescue a point to open up the season. It's a somewhat similar situation against Nacional da Madeira for another draw, and then CF Estrela Amadora proceeded to demolish us at their own house as we lost 3-0. Much like last season, it's not the best start, but we've got plenty of time to bounce. While we do rally around Archie's unfortunate injury with a 5-0 win over Feirense and somehow scraping by Casapia to wrap up August, Rafa Pinto getting injured with a hernia for the next month meant that I had some work ahead of me in the summer transfer window deadline.
Several days later.
Look, we'll have better luck in January. It's totally going to be fine until then. Don't look, but we've won 4 in a row. We've got all of the momentum on our side in this upcoming matchup against Oh wow! Some teams just have your number sometimes. Thankfully, a distraction came along in the third round of the Taça de Portugal against 4th tier Esporte União Sintrense. While we won that 2-1, the 4th tier side came at us with everything they had in the process. Additionally, Waliodin Kidir pulled his knee ligaments in training a few days later after that game, and dear mother of God, can we just stop with the injuries already? We did get back on the winning track against Historio Praia with a 3-0 win, and oh, would you look at that, Rafa Pinto's injured again!
Stop it!
The bad news kept on coming as Braga won another game in the Allianz Cup and thus were automatically knocked out of the third phase, and Porto reminded us of the pecking order once again as we lost 2-1 to wrap up October. Speaking of October, wasn't something important supposed to happen this month? Estádio União de Tomar was finally open after an initial delay in construction, and on his return to the lineup, Archie Goodwin made history by scoring the first ever goal within it. Sure, we drew 1-1 against Vitória de Guimarães, but it was the beginning of a new era for the team. We took this performance and built on it with a dominant 6-0 win in the Taça de Portugal 4th round against lower tier club Cirzense, and our round of 16 draw in the aftermath would prove favorable as we got matched up against Campeonato de Portugal side Amarante. However, it's a rule of thumb at this point that we can't always have good things, as Benfica comes into our new home and kills the vibe completely. Things also looked dire in the aftermath of that game against Boa Vista, but Archie Goodwin decided to do his best Greg Jennings impression and scored 2 goals late in the game to finally give União de Tomar their first win at the new stadium. That led us into December, and we got the news that a whole new president got elected. Just to then get a memo that there are no plans to provide the club with any investment at this time.
Cool.
While we opened the month with a rough loss to Sporting CP, we do bounce back with a win against Portimonense, draw against Feirense in an Allianz Cup game to get our paycheck for coming second place, then yet again end up eating a rough, close loss to Rio Ave where we surrendered 3 goals in 5 shots. That led me to promptly look into the transfer market and find a loan deal for veteran goalie Sergi Puig from Las Palmas because we are somehow in the top half of the table and right now, Thiago Gonçalves ain't cutting the mustard. Of course we can't start the year without injuries as Irfan Fondi is now out for most of January with pulled knee ligaments. As I yet again have to have a calm and civilized discussion with our medical staff, Aristide Wam got us through the round of 16 in the Taça de Portugal against Amarante with a goal in stoppage time. That puts us in a quarterfinal match against Vitória de Guimarães come February, but in the meantime, a win against Famalicão to start January's games did have us just 3 points away from 4th place Braga. We took this to heart as the team did go unbeaten through the January stretch, the key highlight out of those close victories being none other than our Academy star boy, Marco Tavares. He'd been playing so well at Caldas that I made the executive call to bring him back from loan, and he rewarded the team accordingly with a goal in his debut against Feirense, and then he got another one against Casa Pia. That wasn't the only thing we did at the tail end of January, as I actually did find some semblance of a good deal on the free transfer market by bringing in an English striker in Jude Sunsup-Bell. Given what happened earlier this year with Goodwin's injury, I'm just not taking any chances. Plus, he can play on the wings too, which is pretty nice for squad depth.
Nice!
The January stretch in the league brought us to 4th place in the table, but February's main focus, at first, was on the quarterfinals of the Taça de Portugal against Vitória de Guimarães, and that would be the defining game of the season thus far. Archie Goodwin and Michal Kohut opened up the scoring, but Vitória de Guimarães bounced back with 2 goals in 5 minutes late in the game to take it to extra time. A winner could not be found in 120 minutes, and so we went to penalties. No one could miss, as all 5 main takers on both sides converted. That took us to sudden death, and the next 4 shooters did not miss either. Then, the 10th round comes, and defender Lumbardilova does not make it. Vitória de Guimarães somehow decided their goalie should be their 10th kicker, and Alim Papa made the save to keep this whole thing alive. Papa converts his PK as the 11th man, and Grujic does the same, as we now have gone through the entire 11 players on the field, and that means we're swinging it back around to the top of the order. Archie Goodwin coolly and calmly scores his PK, and now the pressure is on Vitória de Guimarães as Adrian Marin has to score to keep this going. And Alim Papa makes the game-winning save, as União de Tomar advances in dramatic fashion to the Taça de Portugal semi-final. 11-10 in penalty kicks. A game unlike anything I have seen in my time. And our reward for it is a semi-final matchup against Porto.
Oh, come on, man, I can't have in this house!
Oh, right, and Alim Papa basically sacrificed himself for the cause, as a broken wrist is gonna have him out for just about the rest of the season.
What is it?
Our exhausted team does play Varzim to a boring 0-0 draw at their home 3 days later, but the unbeaten streak continues for February as we shut out Arouca with a 3-0 win. A Rafa Pinto hat-trick is enough to get through Estoril Praia in a 3-2 win, and then the craziest result of the month happens as Adam Cade and Archie Goodwin both score within a minute of each other to somehow secure a 2-2 draw at Estádio do Dragão in the first leg of the Taça de Portugal semi-final. The only sour note of February happens to be Nacional da Madeira ending our unbeaten streak as we lose 2-0 to them on their ground. The start of March does set us up for possibly the key matchup in our Liga Portugal campaign, as we get Braga at Estádio União de Tomar, as only 2 points separate our teams and are the difference between 4th and 5th place. After some adjustments in the second half, we scored 3 unanswered goals to win the game 3-1, as we kept the 2-point advantage over Braga in the race for that last European spot. The momentum of that win was so crazy that we managed to even go into Estádio da Luz and score a pair of late game goals to draw against Benfica as well. Although after that performance, a costly red card early on in the next game does see us eventually fall short of the mark to Porto in the league with a 2-1 loss that causes us to fall to 5th place on the table. Thankfully, we started April by overcoming Vitória de Guimarães and get right back on that 4th place spot, as now Nacional da Madeira is also chasing after it. A draw against Sporting CP keeps us in place on the league table, but the focus would shift once more to the Taça de Portugal, as Porto would come into our house for the second leg of the semi-final. It did not start off spectacularly, as Evanilson scored in the 24th minute for Porto. 10 minutes later, Aristide One then took matters into his own feet with a long-distance banger to tie it up 1-1. But the turning point of the game came from a free kick given 25 yards from goal, and Thiago Ferreira absolutely got every bit of it, scoring one of União de Tomar's best goals of the entire season in the process. The team then held their ground, and to the absolute shock of most pundits, we held on to the 2-1 victory to punch our ticket to the Taça de Portugal final. It was a historical achievement just to get to this point with the club. It also gave us a second lifeline in terms of European qualification, since the winner of the Taça de Portugal technically got that spot. But since that trophy bounces around between Benfica, Porto, and maybe sometimes the Sporting CP or Braga, well, that usually means the 4th place team on the table ends up having it gifted to them. With 4 games left in Liga Portugal, we had to take care of the matches we could, and while a draw against Boa Vista, plus an injury to Jude Bell was not an ideal start in this scenario, we recovered by beating Famalicão 2-1.
Unit lost.
The Fates may have tried to beat us into submission, but we would not go gently into that good night, as Marco Tavares' brace against Portimonense secured a clutch 2-1 victory, get us back in the 4th place due to Braga and Nacional da Madeira dropping points the following day. This would set us up for the final game of the season against Rio Ave, where in order to maintain 4th place, nothing but a victory would do. We were off to an absolutely terrible start, as Andrea Neves scored a brace in the first half, and we trailed by 2 before Joaquim Panicelli scored in the 44th minute to keep us within 1 going into the half. Our fighting spirit would be tested in the second half, but Rodrigo Matos tied it up 2-2 on a penalty kick at the 76th minute mark. But a draw would not be enough to see us through, and it would be the 19-year-old Marco Tavares who would score the game-winning goal and guarantee European football for União de Tomar next season. And now, all that was left was a chance at the club's first major trophy in the finals of the Taça de Portugal against SEL Benfica, who ended up losing out on the Liga Portugal title to Porto again, due to goal differential, in a season where Romelu Lukaku was the league's top goal scorer with 25 goals.
Flashback to the future!
A shameful display!
At least, we can sit back and enjoy a tremendous season overall that exceeded expectations with a guaranteed spot for qualifiers in the UEFA Europa Conference League. And while our budget was limited compared to some of the clubs who would be in this competition, $564k for a transfer budget was more than what we usually get in the first place. So we're gonna make use of it, because now that we've got a new stadium and are among Portugal's top teams, it's time we make sure the bank account reflects that too, and nothing brings in the money like European football.